Hello everyone, I'm Sanket Singh and welcome back to my channel. So guys, a few weeks back, we actually uploaded a couple of lectures around introduction to JavaScript. And to be very honest, we got a good response from you guys and a lot of people were actually asking in the comments to actually continue the series as well. So now what we're going to do is we are going to continue our discussion on JavaScript and we are going to see some intermediate concepts around fundamentals of JavaScript. These are going to be pretty hands-on oriented lectures where we are going to see a lot of coding examples and we will be also solving a couple of problems as well that can actually help you to improve your overall algorithmic problem solving skills. So without any further ado, let's just start. But before starting this particular video, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing to the channel. We are going to put some really awesome content on this channel coming up ahead. So without any further delay, let's just start. So guys, before moving forward, there is a very important information that I would like to give you. So recently we wrapped our Elite 1.0 front-end development course and now we have launched our Elite 2.0 advanced front-end development course. This is a bigger and a better front-end development course that you need. This course doesn't need any particular prerequisite and we are going to take you from the very beginner level to the advanced level of front-end engineering. We have actually included projects like your own Replit clone, Wix website maker clone, right? Uber clone, and a lot of similar projects. We are going to make your own PubSub library based LLD driven projects, and we are going to make sure that you learn important front-end design patterns as well. I'm going to list down all the projects and all the important design patterns here. This is the only course that you need if you're aiming for SD1 or SD2 or SD3 kind of roles, because we are going to take everything to the very advanced level in front-end engineering. We are going to learn a lot of optimizations and we are going to see technologies like Next.js, Redux, Zustand, TypeScript, React, and of course, the latest version of React. This particular course is going to make sure that you have ample amount of projects that you can add in your resume. We are going to make approximately 20 plus projects with different variety of complexities, engineering problems, and of course, there will be a lot of discussion around the core concepts of frontend. So what are you waiting for? Check out the course link in the description below and you can use the coupon code mentioned in the description section to get maximum discount possible. See you guys in the cohort and let's get back to the video. What is happening? We are going to solve a few questions around the basic constructs of programming that we have learned, right? So this is the first question that we are going to technically solve, which is going to be a bit more tricky. These kind of questions are also called as pattern based questions or pattern printing questions, right? Why pattern printing questions? Because like in these pattern of questions, we are going to get a number, and based on that number we are going to print something like a pattern or a design on the screen. We have to figure out the logic that how that pattern or design is getting printed. That's the whole essence of these kind of questions. Now if you see, the question says that given a value n, which is going to be a positive integer always, print the following pattern on the screen. So for example, for n is equals to 4, you have to print something like this. For n is equals to 3, you have to print something like this. For n is equals to 6, you have to print something like this. Okay. Now, first of all, when we have to solve these kind of questions, we need to actually understand what the question is demanding, right? If you carefully see, when n was equals to 4, we printed 4 rows and in each row you have 4 stars. You printed 4 rows and in each row you have 4 stars. So technically you kind of like printed a 4 cross 4 grid. When n was equals to 3, you printed 3 rows and in each row you got 3 stars. When n was equals to 6, you got 6 rows and in each row you got 6 stars. So for n is equals to 3, you are printing a 3 cross 3 grid. For n is equals to 6, you are printing a 6 cross 6 grid, right? So technically, if I decipher the question, what do we have to do? We have to print a n cross n grid with all stars, right? All the characters are going to be stars. See, here we are printing a 4 cross 4 grid. Here we are printing a 3 cross 3 grid. Here we are printing a 6 cross 6 grid, right? So these kind of questions we have to solve. Now, we need to step by step see the logic. We need to step by step see the logic. Whenever we are going to print the patterns, right? First of all, we have to understand the pattern, that when our input will come, what we have to exactly do, right? Okay. Now, how can we print it? Now we understood that what we have to exactly do, we have to print a n cross n grid. Now, what we have to actually do, like how we can decipher the logic, how we can figure out the logic. Let's try to talk about that. Let's try to talk about that. So let's try to talk about some observations that I can just like directly make. Observation number one. Can I say that for a given value of n, we print n rows? Can I say that? If n was 4, you are going to print 4 rows. If n was 3, you are going to print 3 rows. If n was 6, you are going to print 6 rows, right? So you are going to print n rows always, right? Okay. Then observation number 2. Observation 2, which is for a given row, we print n stars in that row, right? Now, if you consider any row, if let's say you consider this row, or you consider this row, or you consider this row, if you consider any row, then on that row, you are going to print n stars. You are going to print n stars here. 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 Can I say that? As simple as that. So see, you are going to print n rows, and in each row you have to print n stars. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that we have to do some task. We have to do some task for each row, right? We have to do some task for each row. And what is the task? The task is to print n stars on that row, right? And the task is to print n stars in that row. Okay. This is something that we can directly observe, that we have to do some task for each row, and in each row, what is the task? We have to print n stars. And how many rows we have to print? How many rows we have to print? We have to print n rows, right? We have to print n rows. So how can we solve this question? Now, what is the element of repetition? What is the element of repetition here? The element of repetition is that in every row you are going to do the same task. See, in every row you are going to do the same task. In every row you are going to do the same task. In every row you are going to do the same task. That is print n stars. So we can say that here the element of repetition is that we repeatedly do the same task on each row. We repeatedly do the same task on each row. Can I say that? Right? See, in this row also you are going to do same 4 stars. In this row also you are going to do same. In this row same. In this row same. Right? That is n stars. If you take any other example, in this row also you are going to do same n stars. In this row also you are going to do n stars. In this row also you are going to do n stars, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the element of repetition. That is the element of repetition, that anyhow, any cost, for each row I just need to do the same thing again and again. For each row, do the same thing again and again. For the each row, do the same thing again and again. So how can you do something for each row again and again? Can I say, I can put a loop that for let I is equals to 1, I less than equal to n, I plus plus, or let's make it more verbose. Let's make it more verbose. Let's say let row is equals to 1, row less than equal to n, row plus equals to 1, right? And now, can you say that this row variable is actually going to mimic a row for us? It is going to actually be a placeholder for a row for us. That is, whatever logic I will write inside this loop, I will write inside this loop, that logic will be repeated how many times? N times. That is, that logic is going to be repeated for every row. So can I say that this row variable mimics our actual row? Mimics our actual row, right? It mimics our actual row. And whatever we are going to write inside, whatever we are going to write inside the loop, we will be repeating that again and again. We will be repeating that again and again, right? So I will try to write some task inside this for loop, and when we will run the for loop, that task will be executed again for row number 1. Then row moves from row number 1 to 2. Then that task will be repeated again. Then row moves to 3. That task will be repeated again, and so on and so forth. And so on and so forth. I hope this much point is clear to everyone. Now, we know that if we use this loop and we write something inside this loop, that thing will be repeated again and again, right? And this loop is going to go from 1 to n. That means it will try to do something for each row. Now, what do you have to do for each row? What do you have to do for each row? That is the main crucial part, right? That is the main crucial part. Now, in order to understand what we have to do for each row, we need to like step aside a bit and just understand a very simple logic. We need to understand a very simple logic. That simple logic is that we know this as our addition operator. This is our addition operator. What is this addition operator going to do? If you do 2 plus 3, it gives you 5. If you do 2 plus 3, it will give you 5. Okay. But there is a very interesting thing about this plus operator in JavaScript. This is your left operand, this is your right operand. And then let's say you put a plus in between, right? And if anyone, either left or right or both, are strings, then it converts the other operand, other operand as a string again, as a string also, and then joins them, and then joins them, and then joins them. For example, let's say if you have a input like Sanket plus 10. So now you can see the left operand is a string, the right is a number. What will happen? It will convert the right one also in a string. So technically this will be Sanket plus a string 10, which is going to be equal to, once it converts both of them to a string, it just joins them. When I say join them, then what it means that it creates a new string, which is actually a combination of these two strings, right? If let's say both of them are already a string, ABC plus DEF, then both of them are already a string. So you will just directly do the joining, ABCDEF as a string, right? So when I say join, it is just going to add both of the strings together, and this joining process is called as concatenation. This joining process of two strings is called concatenation. Right. So what is string concatenation? What is string concatenation? In string concatenation, if you have one string and if you have another string and you use a plus operator in between, then it is going to technically just merge both the strings or join both the strings one after another, and final output is also a string. So let me write it. In string concatenation, if we have both operands as strings, then we just join them together and return, or I would say and get a new string, right? And get a new string. For example, if you have A, B, C plus D, E, F, it is going to make it a new string A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So if you have both the operands as string, then you will be doing string concatenation. But there can be a case, right, that one operand is not a string, whereas one operand is a string. In that case, what will happen? JavaScript will convert the other operand to a string. So JavaScript will convert this 10 to a string 10. So here the conversion happened. So here conversion happened. And what is this conversion called as? You can also call it as coercion. So it will just convert the non-string value into a string and then just concatenate it, right? So for concatenation, you are going to use the plus operator. If both of the values are number, plus operator will add them. But if both of the values are strings, then the plus operator is going to concatenate them, right? So let me even give you the example. So let's say if you do 2 plus 3, it is going to be 5 because both of them are numbers. If you do a string 2 plus a string 3, this is going to become 23. This is going to become 23, right? And technically, if plus operator is going to work for string concatenation, can I also say that plus equal to operator will also work for it? This also does string concatenation. Why? Because a plus equals to b can be written as a is equals to a plus b, right? And when you are writing a is equals to a plus b, then technically you are using the plus operator. So wherever you write plus equal to, that is also going to do string concatenation. This is the concept of string concatenation. And now this concept we are going to use inside our question that we were trying to do. But I hope this concept of string concatenation is clear to everyone. Now, having the knowledge of loops and having the knowledge of string concatenation, we have to figure out one very simple thing. What task to repeat? Inside this area, what task we have to repeat? So let's try to see our task. Our task is to print n stars in one line. Task is to print n stars in one line, right? Our task is to print n stars in one line. So technically if you see, then how can you build n stars? Let's just try to figure it out, that how can we build a string having n stars, right? For example, if n is equals to 4, you need to get a string like this. So just tell me one thing. How about if I create a string, let stars as an empty string, okay? This is an empty string, right? This is an empty string. And now let's say you do stars plus is equals to this. What will happen? What is the current value? So this is technically a what? This is technically stars is equals to stars plus this asterisk. What is the current value of stars? It is an empty string. So empty string plus a string of star will eventually give you what? A string of a single star. Can I say that? Can I say that? So what did I do? I said that for each row we have to print n stars. So first generate a string of n star, because this is going to be a text, right? It's not a number or something else. It's a text. How can we generate it? How can we generate it? For each row I have to print n stars. So how can we generate it? I'm saying let's use the concept of string concatenation. Let's say I initialize a variable stars with an empty string. So this is a string. And then I do this operation once. If you do this operation once, then what is a plus equals to some b? It is equals to a is equals to a plus b, right? So what is stars plus equals to a string of asterisk? It is going to be stars is equals to stars plus this string of asterisk. And what is the value of stars? The value of stars is an empty string. So empty string plus this star is going to be what? This star. Can I say that? And if I repeat the process, if I do stars plus is equals to asterisk again, let's say I do it again, what will happen? It is equal to saying stars is equals to stars plus asterisk. Now what is the value of stars? Can I say stars was already having a single asterisk? This stars variable is already having a single asterisk, right? This stars variable is already having single asterisk because we have already done this operation once. Can I say that? Initially the value of the variable stars were empty. Now the value of the variable stars is a string. Now if you do it again, what will happen? This old string is what? An empty asterisk plus this empty asterisk. This is going to give you double asterisk. This is going to give you a double asterisk. Can I say that? So if I will do this operation 2 times, I will get 2 stars. How about if I do this operation 3 times? Can I say finally we will get 3 stars with us, because we already have 2 stars. I will add one more star as a string. It will do string concatenation. So if I do this operation 3 times, it will give me 3 stars. And you just tell me, if I do this operation n times, then what will happen? You will get star, 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 dot, 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 stars. And this will be n times. Can I say that? And how can you repeat this operation n times? How to repeat this process n times? We can use a loop. Using loops, right? So can I say that this task we have to repeat for each row? For each row we have to do this task. And how do we do this task? We say let str is equals to an empty string. Str is equals to an empty string. We say for let column is equals to 1, column less than or equal to n, column plus plus, right? Because now we have to do some task for each column. Can I say that? And what is the task? The task is str plus is equals to a star. Can I say that? So if you repeat this loop n times, you will get a string of stars, which will be n times stars, right? We'll be getting a string of stars. Can I say that? See, if we start with an empty string and I repeat this process n times, I'll get a string with all the asterisks with n times. Once we have got the asterisks n times, see, in the current row, if we got n asterisks together, how about we just print it? How about we just print it? So if I do something like console.log str, console.log str, so what will happen? What will happen? For each row, you are going to print these n stars. For each row, you are going to print these n stars. Can I say that? And that's it. See, we segregated our logic. We segregated our logic into two loops. One is the outer loop. This is the outer loop. This is the outer loop. And this is the inner loop. This is the inner loop. In outer loop, what you are saying, let's go to each row and do something. Let's go to each row and try to do something. And in the inner loop, you are doing that something. What is that something? That prepare a string of n stars and print that string. Prepare a string of n stars and print that string. And because you are doing console.log, it will always print it in a new line, right? So let me try to write a code in front of you. Let me try to write a code in front of you so that you will get a better understanding of what is going on. But I hope the basic explanation of the problem is clear to everyone. Let's start coding the solution. Okay. So what I can say is, let's say we take n is equals to 4, right? And we'll try to write the logic for printing the pattern. We have already deciphered the logic. What we have to do? Write a loop to repeat a task for n rows, right? How do you repeat a task for n rows? You say for let row is equals to 1, row less than equal to n, row plus equals to 1. And then here you are going to mention the task. Now what is the task? The task is to concatenate a string of stars n times. N times. How do you do it? You say let str is equals to an empty string. For let column is equal, why I'm writing column? Because every column means a new star. So column is equals to 1, column less than or equal to n, column plus equals to 1, and we do str plus is equals to a star. At last we are going to print console.log str. Okay. So let's try to run this code. Let's try to run this code. If you run it, you can see we are getting n stars where n was equals to 4. So a 4 cross 4 grid we are printing. Can I say that? If I change the value of n to 5, if I change the value of n to 5, can I say now we are getting a grid of 5 cross 5? If I change it to n is equals to 10, then you can see we are getting a 10 cross 10 grid. So this is what we wanted, right? This is what we wanted. And one more thing we can do. Now let's say somebody asks us to print this pattern at multiple positions. Let's say we are writing a very big piece of code and somebody asks us to print this pattern or use this logic of pattern at multiple positions. So what can you do? You can bind this logic inside a function, right? So you can write a function pattern which will take a value n, and you can just bind this whole piece of logic here inside this function. Can I say that? So whenever I will call pattern of 4, I'll just call pattern of 4 and I will run it. See, we are getting a 4 cross 4 pattern, right? So if I will call multiple times pattern of 6, pattern of 2, right? And if I run it, see, first of all, you are printing the pattern of 4, then you are printing the pattern of 6, then you are printing a pattern of 2 cross 2, right? So binding it inside a function makes more sense so that we have our code segregated, and whenever we want to use this logic, we can use it. What is the input parameter to the function? It is the value of n, because n is the only value that we need to write the whole logic. N is the only input that we need in order to write the whole logic. So it makes sense to just give the input of n and then write our whole logic with respect to n. We don't need to return anything because we have to print on the console. We are not going to use the output anywhere, so we don't need to store the output anywhere. That means we don't need to return anything. But JavaScript will always by default return undefined, although we don't care because we are not storing the returned value from the function. And this is how you can print the pattern. This is how you can print the pattern, right? So I can also show you like how you can do a bit of debugging. So let me try to do a bit of debugging for n is equals to 4. right? So if I just debug it quickly in front of you and show you step by step what is going on, right? So let's go inside the function. Okay, so now you start with row is equals to 1. See, you start with row is equals to 1, and then you define a string undefined, which is now technically an empty string. See, and then you start with column is equals to 1. When column is equals to 1, is it less than, is 1 less than or equal to n? Yes. So we do column plus equals to 1 and we concatenate a star. So see, we concatenate a star and store it back inside str. Then we repeat and we again concatenate a star. Then we repeat and we again concatenate a star. Then we repeat again and we again concatenate a star. Now we have 4 stars. And now technically we are going to print our 4 stars that we generated. So let's print it. So now you can see on the console, you can see 4 stars getting printed. Now the value of row will move ahead. Row becomes 2. Now for the second row, you have to do the same thing. Prepare the stars. Right. Let's see this. Prepare the stars. Now 3 stars, 4 stars, and that's it. And then print again. So see, it is now getting printed 2 times, and so on and so forth. We'll just play it and things will be done. So if you run it, you're going to get 4 stars, right? So this is how the overall logic is going to work. And we are just going to use similar logics to print a lot of patterns. We are going to just use a similar piece of logic to print a lot of patterns. So in this question, we were able to understand not only kind of like a nested formation of loops, but we were also able to understand string concatenation. Now let's try to do the dry run for the function. So let's say we give the value of function as n is equals to 3. We pass n is equals to 3 into the function. Okay. So let's see what will happen. Let's see what will happen. You got n is equals to 3. Here you got, one second. You got n is equals to 3, right? Okay. Carefully listen to me. Line number 2 is a comment, nothing will happen. Line number 3 is a comment, nothing will happen. Line number 4. In line number 4, you start a for loop. In the for loop, you say let row is equals to 1. That means you created a variable row whose value is 1. Okay. Whose value is 1. Now, you check, is 1 less than or equal to 3, which is the value of n. Is 1 less than or equal to 3? Can I say that? Yes, this is true. This is true. In that case, you go inside the for loop. You go inside the for loop. Inside the for loop, you create a string str. You create a string str which is empty. You create a string str which is empty. Okay. Now, after line number 7, you will start with line number 8. In line number 8, you start a for loop with a variable call is equals to 1. So you have one more variable, call is equals to 1. Okay. You check. Is the value of call less than or equal to n? Is 1 less than or equal to 3? Yes, true. So you go inside this loop also. You go inside this loop also. And then you concatenate a star in this str variable. So empty plus star is going to be what? This will become a star. And then you are going to repeat the loop. You will repeat the loop. When you repeat the loop, you do call plus equals to 1. So 1 plus 1 will become 2. Call becomes 2. You will check again. Is 2 less than or equal to n? Is 2 less than or equal to n? What is n? 3. So is 2 less than or equal to 3? Yes. So you again go inside the loop and you do one more concatenation. So this star plus one more star will become 2 stars. Okay. Can I say that? And then you are going to go back to the loop and increment the value of call. Call becomes 3. You check again. Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes. So you actually again concatenate one more star. So 2 stars plus one more star is going to be what? 3 stars. And can you see? Currently the value of row is equals to 1. That means whatever we are doing for one complete row. Whatever we are doing for one complete row. And for one complete row, we have prepared our string. For one row, first row, the first given row, we have prepared our string. So how about you just print the string, because the moment you go back to the loop, you increment the value of call to 4. Is 4 less than or equal to 3? No. So you are going to exit out of the loop, and the next line is console.log str. So let's say this is your console string. You are going to print 3 stars here, okay, in a new line. Now you can see this is the last line of the outer loop. This is executed. So what will happen? You are going to go back to the outer loop, and now you will do row plus equals to 1. So row becomes 2, right? Row becomes 2. Can I say that? The moment row becomes 2, you again check whether 2 is less than or equal to 3. Yes, 2 is less than or equal to 3. Yes. So you go again inside this for loop and initialize a new str variable with an empty string. Then you again initialize a for loop variable call with a value 1. So you reset this value of call to 1. And you check, is 1 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. So you concatenate a star in this empty string again. And you go back to this for loop. And you go back to this for loop, right? So call plus equals to 1 will happen when you go back. So call becomes 2. So is 2 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. So what do? You go again inside the loop and you do str plus is equals to star. So what will be star plus star? It will be 2 stars. 2 stars. And then you go back to the loop again. You do call plus equals to 1. This becomes 3. Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. So you again add one more star. You concatenate one more star. So 2 plus 2 stars plus one more star is going to be 3 stars. So this is going to be 3 stars. And then you go back to the loop and call becomes plus 1, that is 4. Now is 4 less than or equal to 3? No, it is not. It's a false. That means this for loop ended. The moment this for loop ended, you are going to go to the next line of this for loop, which is to print str. What is str? It is having 3 stars. Let's print it. And this is the last line of this outer loop. So this is the last line. You are going to go back to the loop, and this time you are going to do row plus equals to 1. So row becomes 3. And for the third row also, you are just going to repeat the process. For the third row, you are just going to repeat the process, and that's it. And this is how actually nested loops work. This concept or this technique that we have discussed here is nested loops. What is nested loops? Loop inside a loop. Loop inside a loop. Why we are having loop inside a loop? Because inner loop is showing some task, and this task we have to do for every row again and again. So how about if we bind it inside an outer loop and just do our things? So this is the concept of nested loops, right? And using this question only, we were able to understand the concept of string concatenation also. One very small note about string concatenation is, let's say you have a string x is equals to abc, right? And you have a string y is equals to def. And let's say you have a string z is equals to xyz. So let's say if you do x is equals to x plus y, something like this. Or let's say, yeah, let's do x is equals to x plus y. Or you can even create another variable for the timing. Let's say let r is equals to x plus y. So what will happen? X is a string, y is a string. So it will create a new string a, b, c, d, e, f and assign it to r. So this is a new string. You always create a new string. It is not going to update the old strings. And same thing for here also. If you do z plus equals to x, so what will happen? The value of z was xyz. If you concatenate x, abc, so a new string xyz abc will be created, which will get assigned to z. So string concatenation always create new strings and doesn't update old strings and doesn't update old strings, right? Now you might be thinking that why it doesn't update the whole string, because if you are creating one string which is already in the memory and then you create another string due to this operation, it is going to waste a lot of memory, right? Yes, it will waste a lot of memory. And the reason is, and the reason for this is, in JavaScript, strings are immutable. What do you mean by the word immutable? They cannot change or cannot modify themselves, right? You cannot modify a string. You cannot modify a string, right? You cannot modify a string inside JavaScript. It will always, if you do some operation on the string, it will just always create a new string. At later point of time, we are going to see some new structures which are mutable, that will be modifiable, but that we are going to discuss later. For the timing, you have to understand that strings are non-mutable, or you can say immutable, right? This is just a note. If you know this in initial days, then later, very much time later, when we will understand how efficient algorithms you should write in terms of time and space, then this thing will be very much relevant to you. But for the timing, the main thing that you have to understand is how exactly this nested loop is working, because currently we are trying to focus more on basic building our basic foundations of loops as concrete as possible. And I hope the overall logic is also clear to everyone. Okay, so this is the new question in front of you, right? This is again a pattern based problem. What the problem says is that given a value n, print the following pattern on the screen. For the given value n, print the following pattern on the screen, right? So let's say for n is equals to 4, this is the pattern. For n is equals to 3, this is the pattern. And for n is equals to 6, this is the pattern. How can we solve this question? If you carefully take a look at the patterns, for n is equals to 4, you can see you are printing 4 rows, row number 1, row number 2, row number 3, row number 4. In n is equals to 3 also you are printing 3 rows, row number 1, row number 2, row number 3. And what you are doing in each row, let's say this is row number 1, this is row number 1. So in row number 1 you are printing 1 star. Let's say the next row is row number 2. So you are printing 2 stars here. Let's say then we have row number 3. So we are printing 3 stars in row number 3. And let's say this is row number 4. You are printing 4 stars in row number 4. Same thing here. In the first row you are printing 1 star. In the second row you are printing 2 stars. In the third row you are printing 3 stars. Same here. In first row 1 star, second row 2 star, third row 3 star, fourth row 4 stars, fifth row 5 stars, sixth row 6 stars, right? So what we have to do in this case, this problem, once again, this problem is a lot similar to the last problem, in the sense that here also we have to repeat a task. And what is the task? Print some stars. Print some stars. This is the task. So we have to repeat the task for each row, right? For each row we have to repeat the task. The only difference is what is the task. In the previous question, what we were having, we were actually trying to print n number of stars in each row, right? In the previous question we were trying to print n number of stars in each row, whereas in this question we are trying to print different number of stars. And what number of stars? Whatever is the row number, that many number of stars in that row. Whatever is the row number, that many number of stars in that row. Whatever is the row number, that many stars in that row, right? So we are doing a lot similar things, that is we have to print some stars for each row, right? But this logic to calculation of some stars is going to be different, right? But what definitely we can say is that I can write a loop something like this: for let row is equals to 1, row less than or equal to n, row plus plus, or row plus equals to 1, right? So again, whatever logic we write will be repeated n times. Whatever logic we write will be repeated n times. Can I say that? Now, what should be the logic? Let's see. Whenever I am at current row, let's say the current row here is here, the current row is equals to 1. So the current row is 1. So you have to use the inner loop in a way such that you only do string concatenation once. If you remember from the last question, how were we building multiple stars for a row? We were building multiple stars for a row using string concatenation. If you concatenate one star, you get one star. If you concatenate one more star, you get two stars. If you concatenate one more star, you get three stars, right? So using string concatenation, we were building these stars. So let's say we are at row number 4. We are at some row number 4. Okay. So the question is, how many stars do we need? If we are at row number 4, how many stars do we need? Just think about it. Stress your brain a bit and tell me. In row number 1, you print 1 star. In row number 2, you print 2 stars. Row number 3, you print 3 stars. So in row number 4, you need 4 stars. Can I say that? So we need 4 stars, right? So can I say that if I initialize a string, if I just initialize a string as an empty string, and then let's say we do star plus str plus is equals to star, and then we again do str plus is equals to star, and so on and so forth. How many times should we repeat the operation? Of concatenation? How many times should we repeat the operation of concatenation? If let's say we are at row number 4, we are only considering some row number 4. Okay. We are only considering some row number 4. In row number 4, how many stars do we need? We need 4 stars, right? So if by concatenating this asterisk once, you get 1 star. Then you concatenate this asterisk again, then you get 2 stars. If you concatenate this asterisk again, you will get 3 stars. And if you concatenate this asterisk again, you will get 4 stars, right? So how many times do we need to repeat this process? Can I say 4 times? 4 times, because the current row number was 4. And what will be a general solution? What will be a general solution? That is for any row, for any given row number, we have to repeat row number times, right? We have to repeat row number times. For example, if the row number is 3, we need to repeat this process 3 times. If the row number is 6, we need to repeat this process 6 times, right? So this process is going to be written here. So what is the process? We say let str is equals to empty, and I write a loop for let call is equals to 1. Now how many times we should repeat? Can I say call should be less than or equal to row, and then we do call plus equals to 1, and inside we can do str plus is equals to an asterisk, and at last we can do console.log str, right? Str. So see, in the previous question, if I just show you the code of the previous question, in the previous question, we were repeating the inner loop n times because in every row we wanted n stars. But this time we are going to use from 1 to row. So just think about it. When the value of row variable is 1, when the value of row variable is 1, the inner loop will go from 1 to 1. That is only once. When the value of row variable is 2, the inner loop is going to go from 1 to 2. When the value of row variable is 3, the inner loop will go how many times? 3 times. The value of row variable is 4, the inner loop will go how many times? 4 times. And if it goes 4 times, then this str variable will be having 4 asterisks and we will be printing 4 asterisks, and that's it. So technically, if you look at this piece of code, if you compare this piece of code, copy, with the old code, let's paste it here, right? So if you compare this with the old code, right, you can see the only difference in both of these codes is this part. This part is the only different part. Here and here. These two are the only different part, right? In the previous question, we wanted n asterisks every time, or we can say n stars in every row. Whereas we don't want n stars in every row. We need row number of stars in every row. If let's say the row number is 4, then we need 4 stars in every row. If the row number is 5, then we need 5 stars in every row. So all we have to do is just change this limit of how many times the loop is going to go, and our question will be done, right? Is this point making sense to everyone? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this whole code. See, I'm copy pasting the whole code, and I'll make a new file, pattern2.js. Okay, I'll paste the whole code, and the only thing that I will change is, instead of n, I'm just going to write row. Okay, only change is the limit of loop. That's it. I just changed this value, right? Everything is same. Everything is same. I just changed this value, and if I run the code, you can see we are getting it like this, right? And if you make it, let's say 9, pattern of 9, and you want to run it, see, it prints everything correctly. So you get a ladder like this by just having a small piece of code changed, right? So if I just cut this out, right, let me transfer it to the iPad and let's do a quick dry run. And let's see what can be done. So you call this pattern function with, let's say, n is equals to 3. With n is equals to 3, you call it. Okay. So you go to line number 4. In line number 4, you create a new row variable, row equals to 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 3? Yes. So you go inside the loop. In the loop, you create a str variable, which is empty. The next line is you initiate another loop with a call value as 1. So call is initially 1. You check, is 1 less than or equal to row? What is the value of the row? See, what is the condition? Is 1 less than or equal to the row? What is the row? What is the value of the row? 1. So is 1 less than or equal to 1? Is 1 less than or equals to 1? Yes, it is. See how it happened? You start with call is equals to 1. You say call less than or equal to row. What is the value of row? 1. What is the value of call? 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 1? Yes. This condition is true. You go inside the loop. Inside the loop, what do? You concatenate asterisk with the empty string. Empty string plus a string of asterisk is going to give you an asterisk. So you get an asterisk here. Right. And then you go back to the loop. The moment you go back to the loop, you increment call. So call becomes 2. And now you check the condition. Is 2 less than or equal to row? What is row? 1. Is 2 less than or equal to 1? Is the value 2, which is the value of the column, less than or equals to 1? No. That means this loop will break, this loop will break, and you are going to come outside of the loop. And what does it say? Console.log str. What is inside str? Just 1 star. So you print 1 star. And then there is no other line out after console.log. So you repeat the for loop. You go back to the for loop. When you go back to the for loop, you do row plus equals to 1. So row becomes 2. And you check, is 2 less than or equal to 3? Is 2 less than or equal to n? Yes. So you go inside the loop. Inside the loop, you reinitialize the variable str. So you got another str. You got another for loop where you started call is equals to 1. So call again become 1. Right? Because you are starting another loop. Call became 1. So you see, is 1 less than or equal to row number? What is row number 2? Is 1 less than or equal to 2? Yes. 1 is less than or equal to 2, right? Can I say that? See, what is the value of column? 1. What is the value of row? 2. So is 1 less than or equal to 2? What will be the answer? True. Yes. If it is a yes, you go inside the loop. Inside the loop, you do a string concatenation. So empty string plus star is going to be a star. And then you go back to this for loop of column. You increment the value of column. So call becomes 2. And you check the condition. What is the value of call? 2. What is the value of row? 2. See, value of row is 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 2? Can I say the value 2, which is the value of the column, is less than or equal to 2? That is the value of the row. We say a yes. We say a yes. That means we again go inside the loop. We again go inside the loop. And we concatenate another star. So 1 star plus 1 more star is going to be 2 stars. And then you go back to the for loop and increment the column. Column becomes 3. Column becomes 3. Now you check the condition again. Is 3 less than or equal to 2, which is the value of the row? Is 3 less than or equal to 2? You can see the value 3 is bigger than 2, right? It is not less than or equals to 2. That means this statement is false. If this statement is false, the for loop will break. And we are going to go to the next line of the for loop. And we print the str. What is inside str? 2 stars. So we print 2 stars. We print 2 stars. Okay. And then you go back to this loop and you increment the value of the row. So row becomes 3. Then you check. Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes. 3 is less than or equal to 3. You go inside. You initialize the str variable again. Right. So str is empty. You got call is equals to 1. Again, is 1 less than or equal to 3, which is the value of the row? Yes. So you go inside the loop and do 1 concatenation. So str became a star. And then you go back and increment the value of column to 2. And you check again. Is 2 less than or equal to 3? Yes. So you go inside the loop and do 1 more concatenation. So you got 2 stars. You go back to the loop again. Call plus equals to 1. Call becomes 3. Is the value 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes. So you again do a concatenation. And you go back to the loop, increment the value of column. Column becomes 4. Is the value 4 less than or equal to 3? No. If you say no, you're going to break out of the loop and the next line is to print str. Str is having 3 stars, so I print 3 stars. And then I go back to this for loop and increment the value of the row. Row becomes 4. And then check the condition. Is 4 less than or equal to 3? No. That means the outer loop also breaks. If the outer loop breaks, you can see there is no line after the outer loop and the program ended. And hence you have got these stars as the pattern. So this was the overall explanation that how by just changing this condition, we got an absolutely new pattern altogether. And the whole concept is the element of repetition, that you have to repeat something for every row. This is how you are going to repeat everything for every row. Now, whatever the task you are repeating, that task also requires repetition. So you use inside another loop, that is the nested loops. So we will be solving a few more questions and we will get more confidence on the topic. So now this is a new question in front of us. This is again a pattern printing problem, and we have to think about the fact that what can be done, what cannot be done. And it's a lot similar to the last question, because in the last question also we were having kind of like these steps, but the only difference is this time we have an inverted set of steps. In the previous question, if you look at the previous question, we were having steps like these, right? Now kind of like a mirror image is there. That is the new question, right? This is the mirror image kind of a thing. So how can we solve it is the question in front of us. If we carefully see this pattern printing problem, then we have to carefully analyze the fact that how we are getting the answer for n is equals to 4. If you see n is equals to 4, then we are printing 4 rows. In each row we have some spaces. These underscores are actually representing a space. So we have some spaces and then we have a star. We have some spaces and then we have some stars. Spaces, stars, and at last we don't even have a space. Same thing here. Spaces and a star, spaces and a star, spaces, no spaces at all. Things like these. So what is the element of repetition? Well, what is the element of repetition? If I just carefully make you analyze, then we can say that for every row, we have to print some spaces followed by stars, or we can say some stars followed by some stars, right? So we have a bunch of spaces and then we have a bunch of stars. So can I say, if we have to do this thing for each row, can I write a loop like for let row is equals to 1, row less than or equal to n, row plus equals to 1, and then whatever logic we are going to write here, this logic will be repeated. Can I say that? Right? Can I say that? So we have to do something for each row. This time the element has changed, right? But we have to do this thing for each row. What is the thing that we have to do? We have to print some spaces followed by some stars. Okay, cool. Now let me cut out this pattern in front of you. Let me cut this pattern. Cut. And paste it here also. Okay, this pattern is coming for n is equals to 6. For n is equals to 6, we have this pattern. Now this is row number 1, this is row number 2, row number 3, row number 4, row number 5, row number 6. Okay. Now, if you see any row, let's say row number 1. When the row number is 1, let me draw a table in front of you instead. Let's draw a table, okay? Let's point row number, spaces and stars. So row, spaces, stars. Okay, cool. And let's move all of this a bit up. So when the row number is 1, how many spaces do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 spaces and 1 star. When the row number is 2, how many spaces we have? 4 spaces and 2 stars. For row number 2, 4 spaces, 2 stars. For row number 3, 3 spaces, 3 stars. For row number 4, 2 spaces, 4 stars. For row number 5, 1 space and 5 stars. And for row number 6, 0 spaces and 6 stars. If you carefully look at a pattern, then for any row number I, for any ith row, for any row number I, we need how many stars? We need I stars. And how many spaces do we need? Can I say we need n minus I spaces? See, just carefully see. When the value of row is 1, how many spaces do you need? 6 minus 1, that is 5. When the row number is 2, how many spaces do you need? 6 minus 2, that is 4. When row number is 3, 6 minus 3, which is 3. When row number is 4, how many spaces do you need? 6 minus 4, that is 2. When row number is 5, you need 6 minus 5, that is 1 space. And then when the row number is 6, you need 6 minus 6, that is 0 spaces. And the stars are equal to the row number. Can I say that? Can I say that? Right. Okay. So we can say that for any row number I, we first need to print n minus I spaces. Then we need to print I stars. As simple as that, right? We need to first of all print n minus I spaces and we need to print I stars. Okay. Now just think about it. Let's say we have row number as 3 and let's say n is 7. Right, row number is 3, n is 7. Okay. For this case, how many spaces will be there? You know the formula, right? You now know the formula that if the given value of n is there and the row number is there, how many spaces do you need to print? We need to print n minus I, that is 7 minus 3, that is 4 spaces. And how many stars do you need? Can I say 3 stars? Right. So now if let's say I prepare a string str, right, I prepare a string str, this string, this str variable will be having all the content of current row, right? That whatever we have to print in the current row, everything will be stored at last inside str. So let's see. I need 4 spaces, right? This is an empty string. So what do we need to do? We need to do str plus is equals to a space, str plus is equals to a space, and so on and so forth. Str plus is equals to a space. Can I say that? And we need to do this task n minus row number of times. Yes or no? So we need to have a loop. We need to somehow have a loop so that we can concatenate this space character into our string n minus row number of times, right? So we need a loop. We need a loop that goes for n minus row number of times, right? How can we write that loop? So let's say we say let str is equals to an empty string, right? And then we say for, or let's say, let's make one more variable, let spaces is equals to n minus row. Can I say that? This is the value. This is the number of spaces we have to print. So what I can say is for let's take a variable j is equals to 1, j less than or equal to spaces, j plus equals to 1, and then we can say str plus is equals to a space character. Can I say that? So let me repeat myself. So what you can see is that for each row you need to print some spaces and some stars, right? How many spaces do you need? N minus I if the I is the row number, and I stars if I is the row number. So let's say if we have the row number as 3, how many spaces do you need if n is 7? Can I say 4 spaces? And we need 3 stars. Okay. Now let's say we initialize a variable str. In this str variable, we will do some operations, and at the last of all of the operations, we will be having the complete content of one single row. That is, let's say row number 3, we will be having all the content of row number 3 inside the str variable. So what content do you need? You need first of all 4 spaces followed by 3 stars. So let's prepare the spaces first. So what you can do str plus is equals to space, str plus is equals to space, str plus is equals to space 4 times, or you can bind this inside a loop. If you want to bind this inside the loop, how many times do you need to repeat the process? Can I say n minus row number of times? And that's what I did here. I calculated the number of spaces to print. This is number of spaces in the current row, right? And then I will concatenate that many spaces. Now you guys tell me after thinking that when we will reach this position, that is after exiting this for loop, how many spaces will be present inside str? If let's say n was 7 and row was 3, after the end of this for loop of j, how many spaces will be there if n is 7 and row is 3? Can I say if n is 7 and row is 3, then there will be the value of this variable spaces will be 4. Can I say that 7 minus 3? So we are saying j is equals to 1, j less than equals to 4, and j plus is equals to 1. So I am repeating this loop 4 times. So I am adding this space character. I am concatenating this space character 4 times. So can I say at the end of the loop, we will be having 4 spaces here. On this line, we will be having 4 spaces inside str. Can I say that? Now, if we have 4 spaces, now after this operation, str is something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 spaces. After 4 spaces, how many stars do we need? We need 3 stars. So we need to now do str plus is equals to a star, str plus is equals to a star, so on and so forth. How many times? Row number of times. So we need one more loop. That goes for row number of times. Can I say that? So we need one more loop that can go for row number of times, because after concatenating, so see, after concatenating spaces, after you have concatenated spaces, then you will concatenate stars. So let me write it. After you have concatenated spaces, then and after then only you will add stars. Can I say that? So can I say that if after completely adding the spaces, then we have to add stars. So can I say when this for loop ends, when this for ends, after this we need one more loop. For stars. Can I say that? After this we need one more loop. So currently, like, we are building the same row, right? So in that row I have built the spaces, and after the spaces I need to build the stars. So can I say let stars is equals to how many stars per row? Can I say whatever is the row number, I need that many number of stars. And now I can say for let column is equals to 1, column less than or equal to stars, column plus equals to 1, right? You can say str plus is equals to a star, and then you can, and once you have concatenated the stars, now you have concatenated the spaces also, now you have concatenated the stars also, what do you need to do? You just need to print. So console.log str, can I say that? Let me cut this out. Okay, and now you can see we have a outer for loop. This is the outer for loop, and then we have two inner for loops. This is inner loop 1, this is inner loop 2. And why we are having one loop here and then after completion of the loop then we have another loop? Because once we have concatenated the spaces, after that only you can concatenate the strings. Now how many spaces you need to concatenate? N minus row. How many stars you need to concatenate? Row. And this loop is familiar, right? If you have to concatenate one character multiple times, you use a loop. So if you have to concatenate space character multiple times, you use a loop. If you have to concatenate star character multiple times, you use a loop. So inside the row, so we are currently building for one row. Whenever you are inside this for loop, we are doing things for one row. For that particular row, we need n minus row spaces, row number of stars, two different for loops inside the outer loop, and our code will be done. Can I say that? I hope this logic is clear to everyone. We will be coding the solution and we will be doing the dry run so that you get more context. But I hope the point is clear to everyone. Let's start coding this pattern. So pattern3.js. So I will write a function pattern. This function is going to take a parameter n because for different values of n we can have different parameters. Okay. Now we will write a loop which will repeat some task for every row. How do we write the loop? For let row is equals to 1, row less than equal to n, row plus equals to 1, right? Inside this loop of row, we will do the task for each row, right? What is the task? The task is some spaces followed by some stars, right? Some spaces followed by some stars. So if let's say you have n is equals to 7 and row number is equals to 3, then technically you will be having 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces and 1, 2, 3 stars. This string will be printed for this row, right? This string will be printed for this row. So let's build the spaces first. Okay, let's build the spaces first. So if you do let spaces, how many spaces do we need for this current row? If we are at any row number row, how many spaces do we need? We have already figured out this logic that we need n minus row number of spaces, right? And also we will be building a string str. Now what we will do? Loop using which we will concatenate n minus row spaces. So let's say for let j equals to 1, j less than equal to spaces, j plus equals to 1, and we say str plus is equals to a space character, right? We concatenate the space. After the above loop ends, we will be having n minus row spaces in str. We will be having n minus row spaces in str. That is, for example, if n is 7, row is 3, then str will be having a value 1, 2, 3, 4. Str will be having 4 spaces after the end of this loop from line number 11. Okay, cool. Now we will write a loop to concatenate stars. So we say for let, first of all, let's calculate the number of stars. So let stars is equals to row, whatever is the row, that many number of stars you need. So we say for let's say s is, or you can write anything like call is equals to 0 or something, call is equals to 1, call less than equals to stars, call plus is equals to 1, any variable you can take, and you just do str plus is equals to a star. and that's it. After the end of the above loop, we have both spaces and then stars in the string. Now let's print the string, console.log str, print the string, and that's it. And that's it, right? So if you now call the pattern, let's say for 8, let's say you want to print 8 rows. Let's see if I run it. Now you can see we are getting 8 rows printed very beautifully. Let's do it for something even big. Let's say let's do it for 17. Let's run it. Now you can see how gracefully we are printing everything. Let's try to print it for something very small. Let's say 3. If you run it, see we are printing it for 3, and that's how you can do the solution, right? So let me even paste the pattern that we are doing here. So this is the pattern, right? In the code I'm also pasting the pattern so that you know which pattern we actually made. Okay, this is the pattern that we have printed. Make sense? This is the pattern for pattern value n is equals to 5, right? Now if I try to debug it in front of you, don't worry, I will be telling you about debugging in VS Code very soon. If I start the debugging, okay, let's close all of these for the time being. Okay, cool. Now let's go inside the function. You have a value n is equals to 5. See, we passed n is equals to 5, right? Now we are in the first row. We are building the first row. So if n is 5 and we are in the first row, how many spaces do we need? If n is 5 and we are in the first row, we need 5 minus 1 spaces, that is 4 spaces. So if I go to this line to calculate spaces, can I say we need 4 spaces? And we have initialized the string as an empty string. Now let's run a loop. So j is equals to 1. Okay, is j less than equal to 4? See, j is equals to 1. Is j less than equal to 4? Is 1 less than equal to 4? Yes, it is. So you concatenate. Just carefully look at str. The moment you concatenate, you see you added a space in str. Then you run the loop again, and then you concatenate again. Now you see added one more space. Then you run the loop again, and you concatenated, you added one more space, and then you added one more space, and that's it. See, so when the loop ends inside your str, you are having some spaces already. Now all you have to do is in the same string add some stars. So how many stars do you need to add? You need to add row number of stars. So you need 1 star because it is the first row. So let's keep an eye on str. So we go inside the loop and we add 1 star. So the moment you add a star, you see you concatenated a star, and that's it. And then you print the star, right? Then you print the star. I have not opened the debug console, but in the debug console, you will be able to see that we have printed 1 star. Now you go to the next row. See, now we are on row number 2. You again build a new str, see, an empty string. Now for row number 2, for n is equals to 5 and row number 2, how many spaces do we need? 5 minus 2, that is 3 spaces. So you see you have 3 spaces, and then you again concatenate 3 spaces. Just take a look here. 1 space is already added, 1 more space, 1 more space, and that's it. After 3 spaces, you will start adding stars. How many stars do you need? You need 2 stars. So call is equals to 1. So we add a star. You see, we added a star, and then we add 1 more star, and that's it. Now we will print it, and so on and so forth. We are just going to do the same things. If I run it, we'll just end the program. Let's run it again, and you can see everything is in place and everything is working. So now we have this problem in hand that for n is equals to 5, we want to print a pattern like this, right? It's going to be extremely simple. It's going to be extremely simple. So we already solved one question before, right? Previous, if you have solved all the previous questions, then we solved a question like this, somewhere, somewhat like this. Okay. And there were some spaces here, 1, 2 spaces here, 3 spaces here, 4 spaces here, right? We have already solved this question. This pattern we already solved. Okay. Now what is the difference in this old pattern and this new pattern? This is the new pattern, this is the old pattern. What is the difference? If you carefully see, then in the old pattern also, for n is equals to 5, you are printing 5 rows, that is consistent. In the old pattern also, you are printing 5 lines, that is consistent. Okay. Apart from that, in the old pattern, you have spaces. In the first line you have 4 spaces, second line you have 3 spaces, third line you have 2 spaces, fourth line you have 1 space, fifth line you have 0 spaces. Same thing here. In the first line 4 spaces, second line 3 spaces, third line 2 spaces, fourth line 1 space, fifth line 0 space. So can I say that the logic of calculating the spaces, what was the logic of calculating the spaces here? The logic of calculating the spaces was n minus row, that whatever is the current row number, if you do n minus row, that is the total number of spaces that we have to print, right? So can I say that this same to same logic of space can be used here also, right? Okay. So if you just technically see, this much part of the pattern is same and this much part of the pattern is same. This part is a bit different and we'll figure out what can be done. Okay. Now, if you look at stars, in the old pattern, in row number 1 you have 1 star, in row number 2 you have 2 star, then 3 star, 4 star, 5 star. So stars were equal to the row number, right? The stars are equal to the row number. Whereas this time in the new pattern, the stars are a bit different. Let's see how. In row number 1 you have 1 star, in row number 2 you have 3 stars. In row number 3 you have 5 stars. In row number 4 you have 7 stars, and in row number 5 you have 9 stars. So can I say that in any row number x you have 2x minus 1 stars? You have 2x minus 1 stars. Can I say that? See, 2 into 1 minus 1 is 1. 2 into 2 minus 1 is 3. 2 into 3, which is 6, minus 1 is 5. 2 into 4 minus 1 is 7. 2 into 5 minus 1 is 9. So can I say for any xth row, you have 2x minus 1 stars? Whereas in the old pattern, for any xth row, you were having x number of stars. So all we can do is just copy paste the logic of the old pattern, and in the logic of the old pattern, wherever we are printing x number of stars for the xth row, let's start printing 2x minus 1 stars for the xth row, and that's it. Right? So let me repeat myself. In this whole pattern, if you carefully see, then everything is same, right? You print n rows. See, n rows in the new pattern, n rows in the old pattern. Spaces are also same in all of the rows. So spaces follow the same logic of n minus row number of spaces. The only difference is the number of stars. In the old pattern, if the row number was x, you had x number of stars. In the new pattern, if the row number is x, you have 2x minus 1 stars. Now you might be feeling, how did I get it? I just observe that if for 1 the answer is 1, for 2 the answer is 3, for 3 the answer is 5. So like with logic building, right? With a bit of logical ability, I was able to figure this out. And all we have to do is keep the code of the old pattern same to same as it is. Just change the inner loop where we are printing the stars to 2x minus 1 stars, or you can say 2 into row minus 1 stars. So let's try to code it and see what can be done. So now if we want to print our new pattern, all we will do is just use this code of the old pattern. So let me copy paste this whole code. I'll just copy and paste it here. And this time everything is going to be same. The logic of spaces is going to be same. Only the logic of stars will change, that how many stars you need to print in the current row. So in the current row, you need to print 2 into row minus 1 number of stars. 2 into row minus 1 number of stars, and that's it. And that's it. That is the only change that we have to do. And what will happen? You will get a pattern like this. Okay, so let me run it in front of you. One second. You can see this is the pattern that we are getting. If you increase it to, let's say, n is equals to 7, you will see a consistent pattern coming up, right? And that's it. So that was the only change that we have to do, and everything is sorted. So this was your fourth pattern that you can build up. Okay, now let's see. This is the new pattern that we have to solve, and again the logic is going to be extremely simple. This is going to be a lot similar to what we have already done. If you see, for n is equals to 5, we are printing 5 rows. So this is row number 1, this is row number 2, this is row number 3, this is row number 4, this is row number 5. There is no concept of spaces, because after the stars, even if you have space, it doesn't matter, you don't need to print it. And before stars there is no space, so no concept of spaces altogether. In the first row you have 5 stars. In the second row you have 4 stars. In the third row you have 3 stars. In the fourth row you have 2 stars, and in the fifth row you have 1 star. So can I say in any xth row you're going to have n minus x plus 1 stars? Just see, if you're row number 1, then n minus 1 plus 1, which is 5. So 5 minus 1 plus 1 is 5. Then if you take 2, 5 minus 2 plus 1, 5 minus 2 is 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, so 4. Then let's check this, 5 minus 3 plus 1 is 3. 5 minus 4 plus 1 is 2. 5 minus 5 is 0, plus 1 is 1. So we already solved a question. We already solved a question like this, right? We already solved a pattern like this. That for n is equals to 5, print a pattern like this. This blue pattern we have already solved. If in the code of the same pattern, what we were doing in the code of this pattern, for every row we were printing row number of stars. In the same code, if instead of printing row number stars, that is putting your loop up till the row number of stars, if you just change the loop to go till n minus x plus 1 number of stars, everything is going to be easy, right? The loop in which you are actually printing a star, the number of stars, or making the number of stars for a particular row. In the old question, if the row number is x, you print x stars. All you have to do is just change it, that if the row number is x, you have to do n minus x plus 1 stars. That's it. That is the only change that we have to do, right? So let's just quickly go through it and see what can be done. Okay, so now we have to print the pattern 5. All we are going to do is use the code of pattern 2, because pattern 2 was this code, right? Pattern 2 actually was this, then 3, 4, 5. This was pattern 2, right? All we will do is copy paste this code of pattern 2, come to the file of pattern 5, paste it. And then if you see the inner loop, in the inner loop, we are doing the task for one row. What was the task? The task is to concatenate these stars n times, right? Or we can say row number of times. In the previous one, it was row number of times. And this time we have n minus row plus 1 number of times. So all we will do is, instead of going till row, we will say n minus row plus 1. That's it. And if you run it, you're going to get a pattern like this, as simple as that. So all you have to do is just change absolutely 2 things, like 1 thing each in the 2 questions, and these pattern 4 and pattern 5 are going to get printed. So it is just like a manipulation of mathematics that I did, and you have a few more patterns with you. So now let's start solving this new question. Okay, so this new question says that for n is equals to 3, this should be the output. For n is equals to 3, this should be the output. Let me draw one more test case in front of you. Let's say for n is equals to 5, you are going to get something like this. So let's not do for n is equals to 5. Yeah, or let's do it for n is equals to 5. So you will be having right something like this. then something like this above it, then something like this here, then something like this, and then something like this. And then you'll be having kind of like copies. If you copy and paste it, paste this one here, then let's copy this and paste it here, and then two more simple ones. And for n is equals to 5, this kind of an output you expect, right? The question says that n will be always odd, and you have to figure out the logic to print these type of patterns for different values of n, right? Now, how can we solve this question? How can we solve this question? If you carefully see, then half of the question is already solved for you. Let me just cut this out. So half of the question is already solved for you because if you carefully see, then this part of the pattern you have already solved. In one of the previous questions we have already solved, if you forget about rest everything, we have already solved a pattern like this. We have already solved a pattern like this if you forget about everything else. So if you just write or copy paste that same code, at least you will get half of the pattern. For the remaining half, we will try to think about something. I hope that point makes sense. Right. So what I'm saying is this upper half, let me call it as upper half. Okay. So this upper half we have already solved. This upper half we have already solved, and we want to solve it for the lower half. So we need to somehow technically form the logic for the lower half, right? Okay. So if you technically see, then we can treat them as two different patterns. We can treat them as two different patterns. We will first print this pattern and then we can print this pattern, right? So if anyhow I can figure out the logic that for n is equals to 5, we have a pattern like this, right? Then this line, then this line and this line. Okay. If somehow I can figure out the logic that how can you print this pattern for n is equals to 5 or this pattern for n is equals to 3, we are going to be done. Our logic is going to be done. Can I say that? So all we have to do is, we already have figured out the logic of the upper half. We will just call that function, and then we will somehow try to prepare the logic of this lower half, and then we can call that function, and things are going to be sorted for us. Now let's try to figure out how we can actually do it. How can we actually solve this question? Now, how can we actually solve this question is something that we need to figure out. Now you can see for n is equals to 5, you are printing 4 rows. So can I say we print total n minus 1 rows? We print total n minus 1 rows. Can I say that? Okay. Now, in row number 1, in row number 2, in row number 3, in row number 4, you have different amount of stars and spaces. Okay. Here you have, in row number 1, there is 0. One second, let me see. So this is going to be shifted by one more space. So in row number 1, you have 1 space. In row number 2, you have 2 spaces. In row number 3, you have 3 spaces. In row number 4, you have 4 spaces. So in this logic, what is the space count? If the row number is x, for a row number x, the spaces are x. Can I say that? For the first row, you have 1 space. For the second row, you have 2 spaces. For the third row, you have 3 spaces. For the fourth row, you have 4 spaces. Can I say that? So for row number x, we have x number of spaces, right? Now, what about stars? What about stars? Let's see. In row number 1, I have 7 stars. In row number 2, I have 5 stars. In row number 3, I have 3 stars. and in row number 4 I have 1 star. Similar thing here. In row number 1 I have 3 stars, in row number 2 I have 1 star, right? So how can we figure out? How can we figure out what will be the expected output? The input is n. The input is n. Can I say that? So let's try to figure out something. If I do n minus 1, so what will I get? Or here I will, and not do n minus 1, let's do n minus x. If I do n minus x, here I will get 4, here I will get 2, here I will get here I will get 4, here I will get 3, here I will get 2, and here I will get 1. Can I say that? Right. And if I do 2 into 4 minus 1, we have 7. 2 into 3 minus 1, we have 5. 2 into 2 minus 1, we have 3. 2 into 1 minus 1, we have 1. So if you do 2 into n minus x minus 1, can I say this can be your number of stars per row? I'm observing things, see? Now technically, with increasing value of rows, your stars are decreasing, right? See, the row number is increasing, the number of stars are decreasing. Can I say that? Right? In the upper part, when the row number was increasing, the number of stars was also increasing. Whereas here, the row number is increasing, the number of stars are decreasing. So whenever you have decreasing logic, it helps a lot that somehow you try to do subtraction from the row. Why? Because just think about it. If I put a value n minus x, if I write a value n minus x, if I increase the value of x, n minus x will reduce. This is the common property of subtraction, right? If you do a minus b and you keep on increasing the value of b and keep the a constant, then the overall subtraction will be reduced. For example, 10 minus 1, 10 minus 2, 10 minus 3, 10 minus 4, 10 minus 5, 10 minus 6. So I'm keeping 10 constant, but I'm increasing the value of the row, right? So if I increase the value of the row, the overall difference, the overall subtracted difference is decreasing. And we need something like this here, right? When we increase the row number, we are technically decreasing the stars. So generally it helps to have some subtraction based expression. So that's why I take n minus x. But just taking n minus x won't help, because n minus x here is 5 minus 1, 4. N minus x here is 5 minus 2, 3. N minus x here is 5 minus 3, 2. N minus x here is 5 minus 4, 1. Can I say that? So we are currently now decreasing the value of n minus x, but it is still not equal to the number of stars. Now if you observe, if you multiply n minus x with 2 and do a minus 1, so 4 to the 8 minus 1 is 7. 3 to the 6 minus 1 is 5. See, here the n minus x is what? 5 minus 2, which is 3. And 3 into 2 minus 1 is what? 5. Same formula. Here also. 5 minus 3 is what? 2. 2 into 2 minus 1 is what? 3. 5 minus 4 is what? 1. 2 into 1 minus 1 is 1. So if you do n minus x, multiply it by 2 and do a subtraction by 1, then you get similar expressions. So it's all about, you have to think. When you actually see the pattern, you have to actually think that how exactly the pattern is unfolding itself, right? So for row number 1, if you have to print 2 into n minus x minus 1 stars, you can put a loop. Then same thing for row number 2, same thing for row number 3, and so on and so forth. Right? So we have figured out the whole logic of the lower side of the pattern. How many rows we have to print? We have to print n minus 1 rows. For every row, we have x number of spaces. If the row number is x, we have x number of spaces, and 2 into n minus x minus 1 number of stars. So what was our original question? Our original question was a diamond like this. See, it is called as a diamond pattern. A lot of people say it as a diamond pattern, right? A lot of people say it as a diamond pattern. Now in this diamond pattern, the upper part of the pattern, that is the first n rows, we have already sorted. We already wrote a function previously which can print the upper half or the upper triangle. We need to just figure out the lower triangle. So we were figuring out the logic of the lower triangle, that for n is equals to 5, we need to have this as the lower triangle, right? Now, how do you calculate lower triangle? In the lower triangle, you print n minus 1 rows. In the xth row, you have x number of spaces. See, in the first row, you have 1 space, second row, 2 spaces, third row, 3 spaces, fourth row, 4 spaces. And how many stars do you have? 2 into n minus x minus 1. Now you might be thinking, how did I get the logic of 2 into n minus x minus 1? Is here, if we are increasing the number of rows, we are decreasing the number of stars. In this kind of situation, it is helpful that you somehow try to make a subtraction based expression, because in subtraction, if there is a minus b, you keep a constant and increase the value of b, then the overall value decreases. So once you get n minus x, what is 5 minus 1? 5 minus 1 is 4, 5 minus 2 is 3, 5 minus 3 is 2, 5 minus 4 is 1. So you get the value of n minus x already decreasing. So we have got some decreasing expression. Now from 4, how can you get 7? You can do 4 into 2 minus 1, which is 7. 3 into 2 minus 1 is 5. 2 into 2 minus 1 is 3. 4 into 2 minus 1 is, 1 into 2 minus 1 is 1. So what I will do is, I will write a function upper triangle, right, which will take the value of n and it will print the upper triangle. And then we will write a function lower triangle, which will take a value of n and print the lower triangle. So when you call the upper triangle, the upper part of the diamond will be printed. When you will call the lower triangle, because you have already done the task of the upper triangle, now we will move on to the lower triangle, and then actually we are going to print the lower triangle and the overall diamond will be printed in front of you. Can I say that? So based on what we have already learned, half of the problem was already solved. Half of the diamond based on whatever we have learned was already solved. The remaining half we treated as a completely new pattern, and that's it. That's the whole logic of the question. Now, how can you code this solution? Let me write a new file, pattern6.js. Okay. I will make a function upper triangle and give it a value n. And I will make another function lower triangle and give it a value n, and we have to implement these functions. Upper triangle is already done. The pattern number 4 was our upper triangle, right? So I'll just copy paste all of this from pattern 4 file and paste it inside this, right? So I'll just copy paste everything. Now our upper triangle function is already printed, right? We have the upper triangle function already there. So we just copy pasted it. I'm just going to collapse. How can you collapse a function so that you get more bandwidth on the screen? There is an arrow here. Just click on that arrow. It will just open or close, or you can say collapse or open the functions. Now let's try to implement the lower triangle. Okay. In the lower triangle, the theory is same. You have to repeat a task for every row. So how many rows you have to print? So we can say for let row is equals to 1, row is less than or equal to n minus 1. Can I say we have to print n minus 1 rows and row plus equals to 1, right? So let me even write it. The lower triangle consists of only n minus 1 rows. Okay. Now for each row, let's print the spaces first. For any given number row, we have spaces equals to the current row. So we can say let spaces equals to the given row number, and then put a loop for the spaces. Let j equals to 1, j less than equal to spaces, j plus equals to 1, right? And we can make a str variable. We can make our regular string that we have been making till now, and then append a space in every iteration. Just append a space, right? Okay. Now we have the spaces with us. Now you need to print the stars. So let's stars is equals to how many stars for any given row? You will be having 2 into n minus row minus 1 number of stars. right? So for every row, when you increase the row number, we decrease number of stars. By observation, we get 2 into n minus row minus 1 number of stars. Okay, now we have the count of the stars that we have to print for the current row. So we'll just put a loop. Let's say k is equals to 1, k less than equals to stars, k plus equals to 1, and then we can say str plus equals to a star, and that's it. And that's it. Final thing that we will do is console.log str. We'll just print the string that we have prepared for the current row, and that's it. Now let's write a function pattern. That is the sixth pattern that we have to print. It will take a value of n. Then inside this function, I can call first the upper triangle function, because in a function you can also call another function. I will first call the upper triangle, and then I will call the lower triangle, and that's it. Let's collab the lower triangle function. And if I want to print pattern for n is equals to 5, let's say, and if you run it, you can see how easily we got this pattern. Let's say for n is equals to 3, we are getting this pattern. For n is equals to 1, let's see. We'll just get a 1 value, because if you see how many rows in the upper triangle, n rows, how many rows in the lower triangle, n minus 1 rows. So lower triangle won't be even printed. Let's see for 7. See, for 7 also we are getting the same diamond. So how gracefully we handled. Half of the function was already implemented for us, upper triangle. Half of the function I manually implemented, and then I just called to consolidate both of the things in one function, I just wrote a function pattern, and then first call the upper triangle so that it can first go and print the upper triangle. Then I called the lower triangle so that it can go, after the printing of the upper triangle, it can go and print the lower triangle. And then I will just call the pattern, and things are going to be done. We are not going to have any specific return values. And this is how you can just print the whole pattern of a diamond. So let me also just copy paste this pattern, let's say for smaller value, so that in the file we will be having a reference. Okay, let's copy. Okay, and this is it for n is equals to 3. Okay, I hope the overall logic of the problem is clear to everyone. So this is the new pattern in front of us, and we want to figure out the logic. So you can say that it's kind of like a butterfly pattern. So the question says that if you have, let's say, n is equals to 5, you have to print a pattern like this. If you have been given n is equals to 7, you have to print a pattern like this. And in this pattern, you have some stars. These underscore actually represent spaces. So you have some stars, some spaces in each row, and you have to figure out the logic, what can be done, what cannot be done. Okay. So let's see, let's cut this out. Let's cut this out from here and try to figure out the logic. Let's try to draw some observations. In pattern based problem, it's all about observation. The more observation you make, the better you will go with the algorithm. So let me write the row numbers that we are printing. So the first observation that I can make is, how many rows are you printing? You are actually printing 7 rows. Okay. So n rows we are printing. Okay. But overall, if we will try to make an overall logic with, like, somehow we will try to write a logic such that in one function only we are able to do everything, it will become extremely complex. There can be a solution that will be very complex, but I don't want to go into a complex solution. As a software engineer, as a programmer, it's always your job to break your problem into some small problems, individually solve those smaller problems, and try to figure out the overall problem, right? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to actually divide this pattern into 3 components. Okay, I'm going to divide this pattern into 3 components. First is this upper component. Then you have this middle component. And then you have this lower component. So this upper component, this middle component, and this lower component. Right. So you have 3 components, and we are going to try to figure out logic for each component separately. We are going to try to figure out the logic of each component separately. Okay, cool. So let's first of all go for the upper component. Let's remove everything else. Let's remove everything else. And let's just try to figure out the logic for the upper component. Okay, cool. Now, if you just take a look at the upper component, in the upper component, in the upper component, you have 3 rows for n is equals to 7, right? If you take a look at n is equals to 5, in the upper component you have 2 rows. So can I say for a given value n, for a given value n, we have n by 2, or you can say n minus 1 by 2 rows. Can I say that? In this question, there is one more important thing, that n will be always odd. N will be always odd, right? This is something that you have to take care about. So can I say that you have n minus 1 by 2 rows? It's as simple as that, right? You can say you have n minus 1 by 2 rows, or you can say that you have n by 2 rows with a floor value. Now, what is this floor value? I am hoping everyone knows about basic floor and ceil values. For example, if you have 5.6, then floor value of 5.6 is 5, right? So either you can use floor value, or let's keep it simple. Let's not put a lot of brain inside. We can say n minus 1 by 2 rows. As simple as that. See, 5 minus 1 by 2 is what? 2. 7 minus 1 by 2 is what? 3. So you have 3 rows. So this is something that we figured out. Okay. Now in every row, you have some stars, some spaces, and then some stars again. So can you see in row number 1, you have 1 star, then some spaces, and then 1 star. In row number 2, you have 2 star, then some spaces, and then 2 stars. In row number 3, you have 3 stars, then some spaces, and then 3 stars again. So can I say in the upper component, the number of stars before the spaces and after the spaces is equal to the row number? Can I say that? So in the upper component, the number of stars before space and after space is same as the row number, right? So if the row number is 1, you have 1 star before the spaces and 1 star after the spaces. You have 2 stars before the spaces and 2 stars after the spaces for second row. For third row, you have 3 stars before the spaces and 3 stars after the spaces, right? So one thing that we can definitely say for sure is, we can say left stars is equals to the row number, and right stars is also equals to row number. Can I say that? Left star means left of the space, and right star means right to the spaces. Now, how many spaces do you have? How many spaces do you have? Okay, let's try to figure out. So for row number 1, you have 5 spaces. N was equals to 7. For row number 2, you have 3 spaces. And for row number 3, you have 1 space. For row number 3, you have 1 space. So what can be the logic here? What can be the logic here? If you want to figure out, like here also, if you see in n is equals to 5, for row number 1, we have 3 spaces. For row number 2, we have 1 space, right? So how many spaces do we have? So now technically, if you see, when the row number is increasing, the spaces are decreasing. The spaces are decreasing. So if we can somehow either use some subtraction or differences, then maybe we can do something, right? Then maybe we can do something. Okay. So let's try to figure out a logic for spaces. Let's try to figure out a logic for spaces. So if you carefully see, if n is 7 and you have row number 1, then you are technically doing 7 minus 2 to get 5, right? You have 5 spaces here. So if you do 7 minus 2, you get 5. If row number is 2, you do 7 minus 4 to get 3. And if row number is 3, then you technically do 7 minus 6 to go to row number 1. So can I say 5 can be written as 7 minus 2 into 1. 3 can be written as 7 minus 2 into 2. And 1 can be written as 7 minus 2 into 3. That is, spaces can be written as, in the upper component, n minus 2 into row for every row. For every row, right? So we can say that spaces will be n minus 2 into row number. And we have the formulas for all the three. We have the formulas for all the three, right? You can see for any xth row, you have to repeat x stars, then n minus 2x spaces, and then x stars again. Let me repeat. So we divided the pattern into 3 separate components. I'm just solving the question for the first upper component. In the upper component, in every row, you have some stars, then some spaces, and then some stars again. How many stars do you have? To the left side of the space and to the right of the space, you have the number of stars equal to the row number. Can I say that? See, if the row number is 3, you have 3 stars here, 3 stars here. Row number is 2, 2 stars here, 2 stars here. So the left side stars are also equal to the row number, and the right side stars are also equal to the row number. Now, how many spaces do you have? In row number 1, you have 5 spaces. In row number 2, you have 3 spaces. In row number 3, you have 1 space. So can I say 5 can be written? Now, I already told you about this logic, right? That when the row number is increasing and the whatever space or star is decreasing, then somehow difference can help you, right? So 5 can be written as 7 minus 2 into 1. 3 can be written as 7 minus 2 into 2. And 1 can be written as 7 minus 2 into 3. Why? 7 minus 2 is 5. 7 minus 4 is 3. And 7 minus 6 is 1. And how can you get a 6? If you multiply the row number with 2, multiply the row number with 2, multiply the row number with 2, and subtract it from 7, you will get the corresponding number of spaces, right? So can I say the spaces are equals to n minus 2 into row number? You can even verify this logic here. Here n is 5. You say 5 minus 2 into 1 is equals to 3. Then 5 minus 2 into 2 is equals to 1. And you can see, right? That's the number of spaces, and that's it. Now you have already solved patterns. You have already solved patterns in which you are having some spaces and then stars in one row. So what do we used to do? In those kind of patterns, we used to write a for loop for a particular row. Let row is equals to 1, row less than or equals to n minus 1 by 2, row plus equals to 1. Okay. Whatever you are going to write inside this loop, whatever you are going to write inside this loop will be repeated for every row. Now in previous questions, you used to write one loop for spaces and then one loop for stars. This time what you can do is, you can have one loop for left stars. Then you can have one more loop for spaces. And then you can have one more loop for right stars. Right? For right stars. Okay. How can we do it? Let's make a string. Let str is equals to an empty string. So left stars. How many left stars do you have? Can I say it is equal to the row number? So what do? We'll say for let I equals to 1, I less than equals to left stars, I plus equals to 1, and then what do? We say str plus equals to a star. Can I say that with this loop we will be able to build the left stars? Okay, then we say spaces is equals to n minus 2 into row, and then we say for let j equals to 1, j less than equal to spaces, j plus equals to 1, and then we do str plus equals to a space character, right? And then you can make right stars is equals to the row number for let k equals to 1, k less than or equal to right stars, k plus equals to 1, and then you do str plus is equals to a star again. And at last you have completed the stars, spaces and stars for one row. So just console.log str, and that's it. We have already seen situations like these, right? So we can write one loop for left stars, one loop for spaces, and one loop for right stars, and our upper component will be done based on these formulas that we have figured out. So let's try to code this upper part and then see what's the output coming as. So let's try to write a function upper. This is going to create the upper component. I'm going to give a value n. Okay. I'll write a for loop. Let row is equals to 1. Row is less than or equal to. Now how many rows we have to print in the upper component? Can I say n minus 1 by 2 and row plus equals to 1? Then for every row, you have to first get left stars. How many left stars you should have? Equal to the row number. So how do you get the left stars? I is equals to 1, I less than equals to the number of left stars, I plus equals to 1. Let's prepare a string variable also. Let str is equals to your empty string. Str plus is equals to a star. So I have appended a star. Now once the stars are done, I'm going to do some spaces. So let spaces is equals to, how many spaces do we need? Can I say n minus 2 into row? These many spaces we need. And then we can say for let j equals to 1, j less than equal to spaces, j plus equals to 1. And we say str plus is equals to a space. Okay. Str plus is equals to a space. And then we say let right stars is equals to the row number, because right stars to the right of spaces are also equal to the row number. And then we say, let's say for let k equals to 1, k less than equals to right stars, k plus equals to 1, str plus is equals to a star. And once you are done for the complete string of the given row, you can do console.log str. That's it. If I will call this function upper with n is equals to 7, and if I run it, once again, this should be log, not low. You can see we are getting the same thing. If let's say we do for n is equals to 5, we are getting the same upper component, right? So the upper component function is done. Now let's try to figure out the middle component and the lower component. Now we have figured out the logic for the upper component. Let's talk about the middle component. In the middle component, when n was equals to 7, you just have to print one line. See, in the middle component, you have just one line, which is having n stars. If you see n is equals to 5, in the middle component, you just have to print 5 stars in one line. So the middle component always consists of only one line, which is having n stars. Can I say that? So middle component always consists of one line with n stars. Can I say that? As simple as that. And how can you get one line with n stars? Can I just write a function middle component or just middle with a value n, and then just say let str is equal, because you have just one row. So for one row you don't need to put nested loops. You can just have one loop for let I equals to 1, I less than equal to n, I plus equals to 1, str plus is equals to a star, and console.log str. That's it. This is the only thing that we have to do for the middle component, right? You have to just write one loop because there is only one row. If you just have one row, you don't need to repeat anything for the rows. So there is no point of having the loop of row. You can just have one loop that can prepare n stars. Okay. So middle component is simple. Now let's talk about the lower component. This is going to be easy. This is going to be easy. If you were able to understand everything around the upper part and the middle part, then this is going to be easy. One second. Let me remove all of this. We don't need the upper part and the middle part. Okay. Now, let's talk about the lower part. Let's talk about the lower part. In the lower part also, can I say we have equal number of rows, that is n minus 1 by 2 number of rows? See, this was for n is equals to 7. So we have the same number of rows as the upper part, right? We have the same number of rows as the upper part. So row number 1, row number 2, row number 3. Okay. So we are going to have same n minus 1 by 2 rows. As simple as that. Simple observation. Now, again you have some left stars, then some spaces, and then you have right stars. How many left stars do you have per row? In row number 1 you have 3. For row number 1 you have 3. For row number 2 you have 2. For row number 3 you have 1. Interesting, right? So how can we figure this out? For 1 you have 3, for 2 you have 2, for 3 you have 1. So when you are increasing the row numbers, you are decreasing the stars. That means some logic of differences might help. If somehow somewhat you can put the logic of differences, then maybe it should help you. Right? Can I say that? So how can you prepare the differences? Somehow if we can use this n and the row number. So let's see. Can I say 7 minus 4 is somehow 3, and then 7 minus let's say 5 is somehow 2, and then 7 minus 6 is somehow 1. Either you can go with this logic, right? Either we can go with this logic, but I don't see anything concrete here. I don't see anything concrete here. Let's try a bit more. Let's try a bit more with something else. So how about you do something like let's see. So figuring out the logic of stars is going to be easy if we use a formula like this. So you can see that if I do n minus 1 by 2 minus row number plus 1. So let's see. Here n is 7. What is 7 minus 1 by 2? This is 6 by 2, which is 3. So now 3 minus row plus 1. If the row number is 1, 3 minus 1 plus 1 is 3, and you have 3 stars. And then if the row number is 2, 3 minus 2 plus 1, it is 1 plus 1, that is 2. And you can see you have 2 stars. And then 3 minus 3 plus 1, that is 1. And you have 1 star. Can I say that? So this can be the formula for left stars. So let me write it here. Your left stars are going to be n minus 1 by 2 minus the row number plus 1. Right? If you will write the value answer for like the pattern for n is equals to 9, then also you will be able to visualize the same thing. If the left stars are this, the right stars are same as the left stars. So right stars are going to be same, n minus 1 by 2 minus row plus 1. The only thing left is spaces. Spaces are easy here. If you see, in row number 1 you have 1 space, in row number 2 you have 3 spaces, in row number 3 you have 5 spaces. So can I say it is 2 into row minus 1 number of spaces? See, 2 into 1 minus 1 is 1. 2 into 2 minus 1 is 3. 2 into 3 minus 1 is 5. So 2 into row minus 1 is the number of spaces. And now you have the logic for number of spaces, number of right stars and number of left stars. So you can just feed the same logic and things will be done, right? You can feed the same logic and things will be done. So we can use a similar loop that we did for upper stars, and then we will get the lower number of stars. Middle stars are easy. For middle component, you just have one line which is having n stars. And that's how we can solve this question. Now let's write our function for the middle component. So I'll write a function middle. It will get a value n. We will prepare str and we will say just a simple loop. I is equals to 1, I less than equals to n, I plus plus, str plus is equals to a star. And then console.log str, as simple as that. And then we will write a function lower, which is the lower component, right? In the lower component, you are going to do something for each row. How many rows do you have? You have n minus 1 by 2 rows. Row plus equals to 1. Let's do it. I plus equals to 1, right? Now, let's prepare a string. Let str is equals to this. Now, let's have our initial set of stars. So let left stars. What is the value of left stars? The formula is n minus 1 by 2. And then we'll put a parenthesis just like how we do in board mass, something like that. Minus row plus 1. That's it, right? So for let I equals to 1, I less than equals to left stars, I plus equals to 1. Same as the upper triangle loop, right? You will be having 3 loops, one for left stars, then for spaces, and then for right stars. And you say str plus is equals to a star. Then how many spaces do you have? Spaces is equals to 2 into row minus 1. Then you say for let j equals to 1, j less than equals to spaces, j plus equals to 1. str, we are going to concatenate space character. And then right stars is equals to same value as of left stars. This should be 1. And then we are going to just repeat the loop for let k equals to 1, k less than equals to right stars, k plus equals to 1, str plus is equals to a star. Now you have prepared the stars and the spaces and the stars for one row. Just print it after preparing them. After their complete preparation, just print them. And now if I call upper with 5, then middle with 5, and then lower with 5. If I call all these 3 functions, first let's print the upper triangle, then the middle triangle, then the lower triangle. If you run it, you are going to get an output like this, right? If I have something bigger, so what I can do it, I can bind this also in a function pattern, which will take a value n and call all three with n. Okay, so I don't have to change the values again and again. All I can do is I can call my pattern. Let's say I will call it with the value 7. Okay, I will call it with the value 7. You can see for 7 also we are getting a similar butterfly. For 9, let's go even bigger. We are getting an even bigger butterfly. And That's a simple logic to solve this question. So we just divided our pattern into multiple components. We solved multiple components separately. You don't need to train your brain like Einstein to solve a problem. You can, you know how to solve smaller problems, right? So just break your problems into smaller problems and do it. This kind of a technique, like thinking technique, is divide and conquer kind of a thing. Although in programming also later when we will learn advanced algorithms, there will be some topic of divide and conquer. We'll come to that, but like it's a way of thinking that you divided your pattern into simple components and then just implemented all of the components individually, right? So let me just paste it as a comment here. Okay, this is the pattern we are doing in this question.